Okay, we'll take that. Okay. Okay, before we start our story, I'm going to show you some signs, and I want you to tell me what any of these signs mean if you recognize them. What would this sign, what do you think it's saying? Go ahead, just tell me.
Attack dogs.
Attack dog.
It's a warning. If we get close to the dog, warning.
It's a warning. If you get too close to a dog on that property, it might attack you. Okay, good. Let's do, what about this one?
No swimming.
No swimming.
Because there's alligators.
There might be alligators in the pool, right? So what, if you went swimming in there, what would happen?
I would get eaten by the alligators.
Okay, an alligator might get you if you go swimming there. Okay, what about this one? No dogs allowed. Okay, so here's one. So wherever this sign would go, if you brought a dog to that place, what might they do?
Arrest you.
They might arrest you, or they might ask you to leave, right? Or they could take your dog away, I guess, depending on where it is. Something really bad might happen. Okay, here's one you may have never seen before. What does that look like?
Oh, I know. If you don't look very well, and if you don't avoid it, fall down the edge.
Sure. Okay, so John said it's a cliff, and you guys were right. If you don't look where you're going, you might fall off the edge. So you got to really be careful. That sign is to warn you that the edges could be dangerous. What about this one? Stop. So if you came to this sign, what should you do?
Stop.
So what kinds of things could happen if you came to that sign and you didn't stop? You could crash. You can get run over. You could get hit by a car. Yeah. Okay. Hey, you guys are really good with these signs. All right. Okay, so those signs, we call them warnings, right? Warning signs. Does that sound like something you've heard before? Yeah. Warning signs. Yeah. Because those signs are meant to warn us of something bad that could happen, right? So they're telling us to stop because something bad might happen. They're saying, hey, don't go swimming in here. There might be alligators, right? So the warning signs mean something bad could happen. And if you pretend like that warning sign isn't there and you ignore it and you go and you do it anyway, can something bad happen? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does God give us warning signs?
Yes.
He does. Okay, now, like what? What are some warning signs he gives us?
Like to not burn yourself.
To not what?
To not burn yourself.
Don't burn yourself? Okay. What other kind of warning signs does he give us?
Don't listen to Satan.
Don't listen to Satan. Okay, that's a good one. How does he tell us not to listen to Satan? There's something that he wrote in the Bible. There's 10 of them. The what?
10 Commandments.
The 10 Commandments. Those are his biggest warning signs that he put up to show us, here's what you should do, but here's what you got to be careful of and make sure not to do, right? Okay, I want you to see this map. Do you see that map?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a map of where God's people that were the Israelites in the Old Testament, that's a map of where God's people used to live. But the only problem was that God's people, they were separated. There were two groups of them.
One sin, one.
Well, the Israelites lived up here in Israel. And then you have more of God's people that live down here in the purple section. That's called Judah. Okay? So here's what happened. Do you know King Solomon? Okay, King Solomon was a really nice king, right? He was really nice. He did a lot of good things. But then when he died, there was another king that took over. And after that king died, another king took over. And after that king died, another king took over. So all these other kings that came after King Solomon, they were really bad kings. Do you know what they did? They did not worship God. They actually worshipped other gods. And one of the 10 Commandments says,
you can't wear other gods.
Don't worship other gods. Yeah, you guys know your 10 Commandments really well. So these kings who were God's people, the people of Israel, these kings, they worshipped other gods, and they had the people of Israel worship other gods too. Yeah, honey?
Did they worship Greek gods or?
Lots of different kinds. There were so many different gods, things that they came up with. They worshiped gods that they thought were in rocks, and gods that they thought were in trees, and gods that they thought were in stars, and anything you could think of. They thought a god was in this table. Anything you could think of. They would put a god to it, and then they would worship it. It was really bad. It got really bad, and they did this for a really long time. But during all of these years that they were doing that, God sent prophets. What are prophets? Do you know?
Warning.
Okay, warnings. Yes, prophets are people that God sends to give warnings to all of the people that are doing the wrong thing. So God sent lots of different prophets over different years, and they all said the same thing. They all said, you gotta stop what you're doing because you're going against what God says to do. And if you keep doing that, God's gonna have to go away. What happens if God goes away and takes away his protection? What happens? What happens, John?
Satan is free to have you do bad things.
Satan is free to do bad things. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. If they lose God's protection, then these people will not be able to protect themselves against all the bad things that are going to happen to them. So in a way, God uses prophets to give his warning signs, to say, stop, or don't do that, or don't go there. And if the people don't listen, then God has to go away. You know why? Because God can't be around sin. It's not because he doesn't love his people, it's because he can't be around that sin. And if God goes away, then his people don't have his protection. And that's what happened to, let me show you the picture again. That's what happened to this group in the green in Israel. They lived in a country called Syria, and they would not stop doing all these things of worshiping other gods and stuff. They wouldn't listen to the prophets that God was sending them, and then bad things started to happen to them, not because God was punishing them, but because God had to go away from those sins, and it left them unprotected so that Satan can come and attack them. And guess what happened to them?
They all died.
This other country called Assyria came and took them over and captured them all and took them away, and then kind of broke them off into all different other places to go live. And the sad thing is that this part right here in the green, those people never came back together again as a group for God's people. The only ones that survived through that was the purple, and that was Judah, the tribe of Judah.
Why couldn't he not go in the...
Well, because now they were controlled by all these other kings that don't even believe in God at all. And those kings would definitely never let these Israelites ever worship the true God. So here's the thing. It's a short story, but here's the problem. It's really important, Dylan, it's important to follow God and listen to him.
he's more important.
He's more important than any other thing that might seem interesting to us. And if we don't listen to his warnings, what will happen?
Something better.
Something bad could happen because we don't have something around us anymore. What? Protection. We don't have his protection anymore. Okay, so we got to make sure that we follow God's warnings, that we follow his 10 commandments, and then we'll have the protection of God so that we can stay as God's people, right?
Amen.
Okay. John, can you come pray for us, please?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, so that we could be in your house. Thank you for letting us have this children's story so that we could listen to your commandments and bless us, bless all of our families. In your name, amen.
Amen.